When you think about Star Wars, you probably picture lightsabers, space battles, and the Force. But have you ever stopped to consider the absolutely bizarre biology of some species living in that galaxy far, far away? We're talking about creatures that defy every rule of evolution we know. Species that make Earth's platypus look perfectly normal. Some digest their prey for 1,000 years. Others don't even have vital organs. However, the most disturbing part isn't what makes them strange. It's realizing these creatures actually make biological sense within their environments. Today, we're diving deep into 10 species whose evolutionary adaptations will make you question everything you thought you knew about life itself. Let's kick things off with everyone's favorite crime lords, the Hutts. Most fans know these slug-like gangsters are tough, but their biology is way stranger than you think. Hutts are hermaphrodites, meaning each individual possesses both male and female reproductive organs. They can choose their gender presentation at different life stages, and yes, Jabba was technically both throughout his life. Hutts can survive for months without food or water by entering torpor, essentially hibernating while awake. Their slug bodies aren't boneless. They have an internal cartilaginous skeleton like sharks, giving them flexibility and surprising strength. That tail can crush a human skull with ease. Hutts reach 1,000 years old, and their intelligence increases with age. Jabba wasn't just a crime lord, he was likely smarter than most species he encountered, with centuries of experience. Their biology produces mucus containing mild toxins, making their touch unpleasant and sometimes harmful. It's nature's don't touch sign. Their digestive system can process almost anything organic, extracting nutrients with incredible efficiency. They store excess energy as fat that also serves as armor and insulation. Those roles aren't just from palace life, they're evolutionary survival mechanisms. Some legend sources even suggest certain Hutts could endure brief vacuum exposure, though xenobiologists debate this. But wait until you hear about the species that literally feeds on your life force through face tentacles. If the Hutts disturb you, the Anzati will give you nightmares. These humanoid beings are the vampires of Star Wars, but instead of blood, they feed on soup, their term for the life essence or force energy of sentient beings. The extraction method? Retractable proboscises extending from their cheeks. The Anzati have 2 long tentacles hidden in cheek pockets. When feeding, these proboscises extend and insert into victims' nostrils, directly accessing the brain. They drain the life force, which appears as glowing liquid to force sensitives. Victims experience intense pleasure during the process, nature's anesthesia for murder. Anzati live for thousands of years and need regular feeding to maintain longevity. The more force-sensitive the victim, the more nourishing the soup. Jedi were considered the ultimate delicacy. Danik Jericho, a famous Anzati assassin, fed on victims in Jabba's palace unnoticed because Anzati perfectly disguised themselves as human. Beyond feeding, Anzati possess superhuman strength, speed, and mind-clouding abilities that make people forget encounters. They survive wounds that would kill most species and regenerate over time. Their cellular structure possesses nutrients and energy in ways science doesn't fully understand. An Anzat who feeds regularly appears perfectly human and can blend into any society for centuries, slowly cultivating victims. They're evolution's perfect ambush hunter, hiding in plain sight. In Legends, some claim to have walked the galaxy since before the Old Republic. Speaking of species that break biological rules, the next one literally doesn't have vital organs. The Gen'Dai are what happens when evolution decides mortality is overrated. These beings are virtually immortal, with biology that reads like science fiction even within Star Wars. They have no vital organs. None. Their entire body consists of regenerative nerve bundles and muscle fibers contained within their skin. You can't kill them by shooting their heart or head because they don't have centralized systems. Cut off an arm? It grows back. Blast a hole through their chest? Tissue regenerates around the wound. Gen'Dai survive being cut in half, burned, frozen, and exposed to space. Their nerve bundles redistribute damage across their body, meaning pain is diffused rather than concentrated. But here's the catch. Gen'Dai live for thousands of years, possibly tens of thousands, but eventually go insane. As they age, their minds deteriorate while bodies remain intact. Older Gen'Dai become increasingly unstable, aggressive, and disconnected from reality. It's immortality without the mental capacity to handle it. Dirge, the most famous Gen'Dai, fought in the Clone Wars at thousands of years old. He'd served everyone from Mandalorians to Separatists, accumulating centuries of combat experience. His armor wasn't for protection. It contained his regenerative mass and gave him consistent form. Without it, Gen'Dai could actually reshape themselves, their nerve clusters and muscle fibers flowing into new configurations. Regeneration requires massive caloric intake. Wounded Gen'Dai consume enormous amounts of food to fuel tissue regrowth. They're walking biological factories. In Legends, the only reliable way to kill a Gen'Dai was complete molecular disintegration or starvation over extremely long periods. Now let's talk about a species that took evolution in the completely opposite direction. While Gen'Dai overcomplicated life, Miraluka simplified by eliminating eyes entirely. Every member is born without eye sockets, optic nerves, or visual organs whatsoever. Where humans have eyes, Miraluka have flat skin. Yet they see perfectly, better than most sighted species. They see through the Force. Every Miraluka is Force sensitive to some degree, perceiving the world through Force sight from birth. They don't see light and color like us. Instead, they perceive energy of living things, matter structure, and the Force itself. They perceive depth, distance, and detail through energetic signatures rather than reflected light. Miraluka see in complete darkness, through walls, and detect living beings from considerable distances. They can't be blinded because they never had sight to lose. Traditional camouflage doesn't work. They still see life force, not visual appearance. This made them exceptional scouts, investigators, and Jedi consulars. But this raises profound questions about the Force. Because Miraluka evolved this way, their Force sensitivity isn't a gift, it's biological necessity. They'd be helpless without it, challenging our understanding of what the Force truly is. Is it really a mystical energy field, or simply a highly evolved sensory organ? Are they communing with the Force, or processing electromagnetic or quantum fields uniquely? Most Miraluka wore masks or veils over where eyes should be, not for themselves, but to make other species comfortable. Looking at smooth skin where eyes should be deeply unsettled most humanoids. Their Force sight also meant they perceived emotional states, Force sensitivity, and even atomic texture of inanimate objects. But if you think seeing without eyes is strange, wait until you hear about this next digestive system. The Sarlacc is a virtually immobile predator that burrows underground with only its mouth exposed, spanning 30 meters across. But the truly horrifying part isn't the size, teeth, or tentacles, it's the digestion time. A Sarlacc digests prey over 1,000 years. 1,000 years of slow dissolution while remaining conscious. The creature's digestive system injects victims with neurotoxins, keeping them alive and aware throughout. Their nutrients extracted molecule by molecule. It's arguably the most horrific death in Star Wars, and it's not malicious, just biology. The Sarlacc doesn't just digest bodies, it absorbs knowledge, memories, and consciousness of victims. Multiple individuals exist within a single Sarlacc, minds connected through its neural network. In Legends, Boba Fett claimed he heard screaming thoughts of previous victims while trapped in the Great Pit of Carkoon. Imagine being part of a collective consciousness where everyone perpetually dies. Sarlaccs live for tens of thousands of years, possibly longer. They grow continuously, root systems extending kilometers underground. Some develop into massive underground networks, tentacles and feeding tendrils spanning vast territories. The mouth is just the visible part. Sarlaccs reproduce by releasing spores into desert winds. Those spores lie dormant for centuries before germinating. Once a spore takes root, the young Sarlacc begins its patient wait, growing slowly and attracting prey through psychic lures or pheromones. In some Legends accounts, individuals who spent time within a Sarlacc and escaped carried fragments of the creature's consciousness, experiencing intrusive thoughts and memories that weren't their own. The Sarlacc had permanently altered their neural structure. If that isn't enough nightmare fuel, let's discuss the species that evolved an entire society around being bugs. The Geonosians are insect biology scaled up to sentient tool-using creatures. These beings are true insects, exoskeletons, compound eyes, wings, but they've developed complex technology, language, and society while maintaining a hive structure that defies conventional understanding. Geonosians have a rigid caste system that's not cultural, it's biological. Each individual is born into a specific role based on genetic factors determined during larval development. Drones, soldiers, and aristocrats are literally different subspecies with distinct physical characteristics, brain structures, and capabilities. You're not assigned a role, you're biologically designed for it from birth. Their wings fold completely flat against their bodies with a partially translucent membranous quality. They fly in Geonosis' atmosphere, but become sluggish in different conditions. Wing muscles are incredibly powerful, lifting their body weight plus equipment, but require enormous caloric intake. The queen lays thousands of eggs in underground chambers. Larvae are tended by drone workers and fed a substance secreted by the queen, determining their caste development. It's biochemical programming that shapes the developing Geonosian's entire physical and mental structure. Drones are sterile with simplified brain structures optimized for specific tasks. Soldiers have enhanced aggression centers, larger mandibles, and robust exoskeletons. Aristocrats develop complex neural structures for higher-order thinking, but are physically weaker. Each caste is essentially a different organism sharing the same species designation. Geonosians communicate through clicking sounds, pheromone release, and wing vibrations. The real communication happens through chemical signals detected through antennae sensory organs. They can have entire conversations that other species are completely unaware of. When the Empire sterilized the Geonosians, they didn't just kill individuals, they destroyed biological castes evolved over millions of years. Entire genetic lineages were erased. It was the elimination of unique evolutionary pathways that could never be recovered. Now prepare yourself for a creature that does something truly impossible to biology. The Ysalamiri are small salamander-like creatures native to Merkur, possessing a biological adaptation so bizarre even Jedi scholars struggled to understand it. These animals create a bubble around themselves where the Force doesn't exist. Not diminished, not weakened, gone. They generate a Force-neutral zone extending roughly 10 meters in radius where Force powers simply don't work. The Force is in all living things, surrounding us and binding the galaxy together. It's not supposed to be something you can negate locally, yet Ysalamiri do exactly that. Their biology produces this effect naturally, passively, without effort. They're not Force sensitive. They don't use the Force to block the Force. They simply exist in a state where the Force is absent. The mechanism remains mysterious, even in universe. Best theories suggest Ysalamiri have organs that somehow push the Force away, creating a void through a process defying conventional physics. Some scientists theorize they disrupt midichlorians. Others suggested they consume Force energy. Nobody knows for certain. Grand Admiral Thrawn understood the strategic implications and weaponized these creatures during his campaign against the New Republic. He transported Ysalamiri in nutrient frames, creating Force-dead zones around ships and bases. This nullified Jedi powers in combat, turning Force users into ordinary people. The creatures became living weapons, enabling tactics that nearly destroyed the New Republic. The ecological reason for this adaptation is equally fascinating. Merkur is home to Vornskurs, predatory creatures that hunt using the Force to detect prey. Ysalamiri evolved their Force-negating bubble as camouflage. They became invisible to Force-based detection. Their impossible biology developed through standard evolutionary pressure. Multiple Ysalamiri can overlap bubbles, creating larger Force-neutral zones. The creatures themselves were harmless tree-dwelling filler feeders with slow metabolisms. Their defensive adaptation became one of the most strategically significant biological features in galactic history. The Bith look strange. Large craniums, pale skin, huge black eyes. But their weirdness isn't visual, it's neurological and sensory. These beings evolved from humanoid ancestors who engaged in a devastating war that poisoned their entire planet. Survivors were forced underground, and the species underwent rapid biological changes to adapt. Bith have no eyelids and can't cry. Their eyes are incredibly sensitive to light, allowing them to see in near darkness, but bright lights cause significant pain. They perceive a broader spectrum than humans, seeing deeper into ultraviolet and infrared ranges. However, they struggle with depth perception at distances beyond a few meters, which is why Bith rarely excel as pilots. Their hearing is truly alien. Bith auditory organs detect sound frequencies far beyond human range, both higher and lower. They can focus hearing with incredible precision, filtering out background noise to isolate specific sounds. A Bith can hold a conversation while simultaneously listening to a completely different discussion across the room. Their brain processes multiple audio streams without confusion. This makes them the galaxy's finest musicians. That's not cultural, it's biological. Bith experience music in ways other species can't comprehend. They hear overtones, harmonics, and subtle frequency variations completely imperceptible to human ears. The modal nodes playing in the Mos Eisley Cantina are using sensory organs other species don't possess to create art impossible for those species to fully appreciate. Their war poisoned them so badly that natural reproduction became impossible. Modern Bith create offspring through computer-guided genetic manipulation. Prospective parents submit genetic samples, computers analyze compatibility and optimize combinations, and embryos are gestated in artificial wombs. Bith children are literally designed by algorithm. Their pacifism is partially biological. Neural pathways producing aggressive responses are underdeveloped in Bith. They feel frustration, fear, and conflict, but the intensity is muted. Bith rarely commit violence because their brain chemistry makes sustained aggression neurologically difficult. Bith have vestigial smell receptors providing only basic information. They evolved underground where smell was less useful. This means entire categories of experience, perfume, fresh bread, ocean air, flowers, are completely absent from Bith consciousness. They live in a world without scent. Speaking of mysterious biology, let's talk about the species everyone recognizes, but nobody understands. Nobody knows what to call Yoda's species, not officially, not in canon, not in Legends. After 9 films, multiple TV series, and decades of expanded universe content, we still don't have a name, homeworld, or clear understanding of their biology. That mystery might be the most interesting thing about them. They're small, rarely exceeding 70 centimeters in height, with green or pale skin, large pointed ears, and 3-fingered hands. They age extremely slowly, reaching full maturity around 100 years and living potentially 900 years or longer. Yoda died at 900, Yaddle appeared middle-aged at nearly 500, and Grogu was still an infant at 50. This raises fundamental questions. Why the extreme longevity? Most long-lived species are large animals with slow metabolisms. Whales, tortoises, elephants. Yoda's species is tiny. active, with clearly fast metabolisms given their energy and acrobatic capabilities. Something about their cellular structure must resist aging in ways defying conventional biological models. Every known member has been extraordinarily force-sensitive, not just capable, powerful. Yoda was among the greatest Jedi in history. Yaddle served on the Jedi Council. Grogu demonstrated force abilities as an infant, exceeding many trained Jedi. This suggests an inherent biological predisposition toward force sensitivity, going far beyond midi-chlorian counts. The large pointed ears aren't just for show. Based on size and position, they likely provide exceptional hearing range and directionality. Combined with large eyes, Yoda's species probably has sensory capabilities that enhance their force abilities. Their backwards sentence structure suggests their brain processes language differently than most humanoids. Is this cultural or neurological? Does their brain structure organize syntax uniquely? When Yoda says, "do or do not, there is no try," is he translating from an internal language structure functioning fundamentally differently than basic? The mystery extends to reproduction. We've never seen a child except Grogu, never learned about their family structures, courtship, or life cycle beyond early infancy and extreme old age. How do they raise young that remain children for 50 years? The most fascinating theory suggests Yoda's species might be inherently force-created or force-evolved. Their extreme sensitivity, longevity, and mysterious origins could indicate that they're not naturally evolved, but beings of force given physical form, or a species shaped by the force over millions of years into something unique. And finally, let's discuss a creature so bizarre, it's literally invisible to the force itself. The Taozin are massive segmented arthropods that can grow up to 30 meters in length, with multiple legs, armored carapaces, and powerful mandibles. They're native to Va'art, and they're absolutely terrifying predators. But that's not what makes them biologically fascinating. What makes them impossible is this: Taozin are completely invisible to force detection. Not invisible like Ysalamiri that create force-neutral zones. Taozin exist within the force, but cannot be sensed through it. A Jedi using the force to sense nearby life would detect every creature, except the Taozin. It's not that the force is absent around them, they're simply undetectable through force-based perception. They're blind spots in the force, holes in cosmic awareness force sensitives rely on. The biological mechanism is unknown and possibly unknowable. Unlike Ysalamiri, which scientists could study and somewhat understand, Taozin simply exist in a state defying force detection. They don't generate force-negating fields, they don't consume or redirect force energy, they're just imperceptible. It's as if their quantum signature doesn't interact with whatever aspect of reality the force reads. Taozin actively hunted Jedi. Their force invisibility made them nearly perfect predators against force sensitives. A Jedi couldn't sense them approaching, couldn't predict attacks through precognition, couldn't detect them through their force at all. Their only warning came from conventional senses, hearing, sight, smell, and by then, a 15-meter arthropod was already attacking. The armor plates covering a Taozin's body retained force invisibility even after death. Armor made from Taozin shell would make the wearer invisible to force detection. Wealthy criminals, paranoid politicians, and anti-Jedi extremists paid fortunes for Taozin shell armor. During the Clone Wars, separatist assassins wore Taozin armor to infiltrate Jedi strongholds undetected. Taozin would burrow underground beneath Va'art's surface, waiting for prey. When something passed overhead, they'd burst upward with surprising speed, mandibles seizing victims before they could react. Against non-force sensitives, they were dangerous. Against Jedi who relied on force-based danger sense, they were devastating. The Jedi Council knew about Taozin, studied them, and never found satisfactory explanations for their properties. Some theorized they evolved on a world with unusual cosmic properties. Others suggested deliberate creation through Sith alchemy. A few proposed they were natural force phenomena given physical form, holes in the force made manifest. The most disturbing possibility? If Taozin could naturally evolve force invisibility, what does that mean about the force's fundamental nature? Does the force have blind spots? Are there aspects of reality existing outside its influence? The existence of Taozin suggests the force might not be as all-encompassing as the Jedi believed, which shakes the foundation of force-based philosophy. And there you have it, 10 species where biology makes Earth's strangest creatures look perfectly ordinary. From hermaphroditic crime lords to creatures that exist as blind spots in the Force itself, the Star Wars galaxy is filled with evolutionary impossibilities that somehow work. These species prove that in a galaxy far, far away, biology has no rules, only suggestions. What makes these species truly fascinating isn't just their strange adaptations, but what they reveal about the broader Star Wars universe. Biology in this galaxy doesn't just evolve, it defies physics, ignores conventional rules, and occasionally just gives up and does whatever it wants. And honestly, that's what makes Star Wars so endlessly interesting. If you enjoyed this deep dive into biological impossibilities, you absolutely need to check out my previous video linked in the description below. Trust me, it's worth your time. And hey, if you made it this far, you clearly appreciate the deep lore and strange details that make Star Wars such a rich universe. Do me a favor, Hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. I've got plenty more weird Star Wars content coming your way, and you don't want to miss what bizarre corner of the galaxy we're exploring next. Until then, may the Force be with you, unless you're standing near an Ysalamiri, in which case, may physics be with you instead.